The Last Supper is a late 15th century mural painting by Italian artist Leonardo da Vinci housed by the refectory of the Convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan, Italy. It is one of the Western world's most recognizable paintings. The work is assumed to have been started around 1495-1496, and was commissioned as part of a plan of renovations to the church and its convent buildings by Leonardo's patron Ludovico Sforza, Duke of Milan. The painting represents the scene of the Last Supper of Jesus with his apostles, as it is told in the Gospel of John, 13:21. Leonardo has depicted the consternation that occurred among the 12 apostles when Jesus announced that one of them would betray him. Due to the methods used, a variety of environmental factors, and intentional damage, little of the original painting remains today, despite numerous restoration attempts, the last being completed in 1999. The theme was a traditional one for refectories, although the room was not a refectory at the time that Leonardo painted it. Leonardo's patron, Ludovico Sforza, planned that the church should be remodeled as a family mausoleum, and to this end, changes were made, perhaps to plans by Bramante. The entire plan was not carried out, and a smaller mortuary chapel was constructed, adjacent to the cloister. The painting was commissioned by Sforza to decorate the wall of the mausoleum. The lunettes above the main painting, formed by the triple-arched ceiling of the refectory, are painted with Sforza coats of arms. The opposite wall of the refectory is covered by the crucifixion fresco by Giovanni Donato da Montorfano, to which Leonardo added figures of the Sforza family in tempera. These figures have deteriorated in much the same way as has the Last Supper. The painting was commissioned by Sforza to decorate the wall of the mausoleum. The lunettes above the main painting, formed by the triple-arched ceiling of the refectory, are painted with Sforza coats of arms. The opposite wall of the refectory is covered by the crucifixion fresco by Giovanni Donato da Montorfano, to which Leonardo added figures of the Sforza family in tempera. These figures have deteriorated in much the same way as has the Last Supper. Leonardo worked on the Last Supper from about 1495 to 1498, but did not work continuously. The beginning date is not certain, as the archives of the convent for the period have been destroyed. A document dated 1497 indicates that the painting was nearly completed at that date. One story goes that a prior from the monastery complained to Leonardo about its delay, enraging him. He wrote to the head of the monastery, explaining he had been struggling to find the perfect villainous face for Judas, and that if he could not find a face corresponding with what he had in mind, he would use the features of the prior who had complained. The Last Supper portrays the reaction given by each apostle when Jesus said one of them would betray him. All 12 apostles have different reactions to the news, with various degrees of anger and shock. The apostles were identified by their names, using a manuscript found in the 19th century. In common with other depictions of the Last Supper from this period, Leonardo seats the diners on one side of the table, so that none of them has his back to the viewer. Most previous depictions excluded Judas by placing him alone on the opposite side of the table from the other 11 disciples and Jesus, or placing halos around all the disciples except Judas. Leonardo instead has Judas lean back into shadow. Jesus is predicting that his betrayer will take the bread at the same time he does to Thomas, and James the Greater to his left, who react in horror as Jesus points with his left hand to a piece of bread before them. The angles and lighting draw attention to Jesus, whose turned right cheek is located at the vanishing point for all perspective lines. Leonardo reportedly used the likenesses of people in and around Milan as inspiration for the painting's figures.